Hello everyone, welcome back to the Adaptation Station, where I take certain adaptations and compare them to their source material counterparts. And today we are continuing on with the fuckery that is the One Piece live-action Netflix series, with Episode 3, Tale No Tales, and Episode 4, Pirates Are Coming. Now I decided to combine these two episodes not simply because it's a two-parter, but because Episode 3 is 80% its own thing. It would have been a much shorter episode in comparison to the last two. And that's not to say that there aren't things to talk about in the third episode, far from it, but because episode 4 does complement episode 3, it's hard to talk about one without the other. So without further ado, let's get talking about our new characters. Kuina, Zoro's childhood friend, and the person who drove Zoro to strive for the goal of becoming the world's greatest swordsman. And the portrayal of the character is pretty much accurate to how it was in the source material. Usopp, a guy who is known for telling lies, specifically that pirates are coming due to the fact that he has long awaited the return of his father Usopp from his pirate voyage. He's also something of a sharpshooter. More on that later on. Now, the guy that they got to play Usopp, and I'm just gonna be honest guys, did not do anything for me. Like, when the guy is having fun, you can tell that he's having fun, but he's not acting, he's just having fun. But when the scene commands him to act, like when it's required for him to come out of his comfort zone, so to speak, and show emotions like sadness or fear or whatever, I just don't feel that. And it could just be that the dude just isn't that experienced of an actor. It doesn't have a whole lot of acting range. Don't get me wrong, I can tell that he's trying, but that's the problem. I shouldn't have to tell when an actor or an actress is trying. It should feel authentic, and for me it just didn't. He may get better over time, but for now, I'm just not feeling it. Also, how come they got rid of Usopp's nose? I mean, it's not like it's the most unrealistic thing in One Piece, and there are cosplayers that can make Usopp's nose look authentic. I'm just saying, come on Netflix, put in some extra effort. Nami, I mean Kaya, a sickly girl who is Usopp's best friend, as well as being filthy stinking rich. And I guess Kaya is pretty fairly portrayed in the show, but then again, there's really not much you can change. Kaya is usually being taken care of by her overprotective staff, most notably her dubious butler, Klahabore. Speaking of which, Klahabore, aka Captain Kuro, formerly a pirate captain who was said to have been taken in by Axeham Morgan of the Marines, which technically isn't a lie, but I'll get back to that. Kuro wormed his way into being a part of Kaya's family, becoming a most trusted butler, and taking care of Kaya years after her parents' passing, all the while scheming behind the scenes to take Kaya's fortune from up under her. Now, the actor that they got to play Kuro isn't really the problem, more as the portrayal of Kuro in the show feels very cookie cutter in comparison to the anime. More on that later on, for there is a lot to cover. Butchie and Sham. Now, in the anime, these are two of Kuro's best fighters, and Sham was a male and they were called the Meow Band brothers, so I guess here they're the Meow Band people? They do have quite a bit of fighting chemistry together, but they didn't bicker like an old married couple like they do in the show, nor were they a part of Kaya's staff along with Kuro himself. Only Kuro was undercover in Kaya's mansion. Meanwhile, the Meow Band brothers along with the rest of Kuro's crew were waiting for his triumphant return. Now, as far as the portrayal of these characters go in the show, it's okay. I don't feel that Sham should have gotten gender swapped, but whatever. And that'll about do it for the new characters. Now let's get into some adaptation accuracy. So for starters, everything that happened in Zoro's past is completely accurate to how it happened in the source material. From Zoro constantly losing to Kuina, to Zoro and Kuina becoming friends, vowing to become the best swordsman or woman, Kuina's untimely death, Zoro taking up her sword in remembrance of her, all of it completely accurate. Usopp telling his tall tales of pirates coming, when in reality there is no danger of pirates at all, much to the chagrin of all the other villagers. The death of Usopp's mother to an unknown illness. Usopp meeting Zoro, Luffy, and Nami, and introducing them to his friend Kaya as a means to help them get a proper ship. Klahabore showing up and attempting to shoot Usopp and the others off the premises. Usopp sneaking around to see Kaya and telling her about his adventures as the great Captain Usopp, which of course are all complete lies, but they do entertain Kaya. Klahabore trying to make amends with Kaya after being so strict. Klahadore's true colors being revealed to Usopp, and Usopp trying to warn the villagers that pirates are actually here this time, only for nobody to believe him, as this is a lie he's been perpetuating for years. So basically the boy who cried wolf. Luffy and Zoro defeating Captain Kuro and the Meow Band duo, saving Kaya, getting to going merry as a reward, and gaining a new crew member in Usopp. Usopp and Luffy's playful rivalry as to who's gonna be the captain, as well as Usopp trying to put on his own Jolly Roger onto the ship. And yeah, that'll do it for the accuracy portion of the video. Now it's time we dive balls deep into some criticism. criticism. Now, as I said before, the flashback scenes between Zoro and his friend Kuina are perfectly adapted, almost one for one with a few minuscule changes here and there, like for example, Zoro and Kuina's fight with real swords takes place during the night in the anime, whereas in the show it takes place during the day. But that's a very minuscule change, so I really don't care. What I do care about, however, is the placement of these flashbacks. And what I mean by that is, this flashback is taking place while Zoro is struggling to climb out of a well, and there's no real correlation between the flashback scenes and Zoro struggling to come out of the well, unless you're trying to tell me that Zoro seriously thought that he wasn't going to make it out of that well and not fulfill his dream of becoming the world's greatest swordsman, which that would be stupid. You wanna know what would have been a better place to have these flashbacks in? During his fight with Mihawk later on in the series. That would have been perfect, man. You don't have to have them all happen during the fight. You can have them spread out throughout the episode, but that's when Zoro needs to be thinking about that, because he is this close to achieving his dream. And if they had done what I had suggested, save the flashback scenes for when Zoro faces off against Mihawk, as well as cut down with some of the dicking around with Kaya in these two episodes, you could have had the character of Django, or Django, however you are to pronounce his name, in these two episodes. And Django was a very pivotal character when it came to Captain Kuros' plans in the anime. As I said before, Django does make a cameo appearance on the Wanted posters, which is kind of a blink and you'll miss it moment, but he does exist in the One Piece live action world. The reason I bring him up is because you remember when I said that Axan Morgan capturing Captain Kuro was technically not a lie? Well, that was all because of Django. You see, Django is a hypnotist. Django can hypnotize people into believing things such as them being stronger than what they actually are, as well as making them do whatever he wants them to do. He has a nasty habit of at times hypnotizing himself as well by accident, though he can be easily snapped out of this as well as anybody else who is under his hypnosis. And back in the day, Django served as Captain Kuro's first mate when he was out there being a pirate. Though eventually, Captain Kuro would grow weary of constantly being hunted down by the Marines, having to think of a new plan, worrying about being betrayed by a crewmate, and ultimately just kind of getting tired of the pirate life. And so he devised a plan to have Django hypnotize one of his crew members into believing that he was Captain Kuro, and hypnotizing a Marine into believing that he had caught Captain Kuro, this Marine being Axan Morgan. And with this little bit of trickery, Kuro was able to escape the pirate life, and later would be found and taken in by Kaya's parents, being allowed to stay at their estate as a butler. And the only bit of exposition that we get on this in the live action show is Zoro making a comment saying how Kuro was taken in by Axan Morgan, and Kuro in turn responding, "Oh, well, that was just a trick." Okay, but how though? Like, guys, it's one thing for this adaptation to try to do its own thing. It's another thing for the adaptation to basically say, go watch One Piece, the anime, if you want some answers. Fuck off with that. Also, let's talk real quick about how Zoro can get knocked out by a glass bottle. I mean, you're telling me that a glass bottle can knock Zoro out, which I wouldn't have a problem with that per se if it wasn't for the fact that later on, Zoro falls down a well head first and survives. I'll say that again. Zoro can be knocked out with a glass bottle, an empty glass bottle at that, but can fall into a well head first with nothing to look forward to but hard ground and be perfectly fine. So I'm confused. Do these people have the durability of their anime counterparts, or are you trying to tell me that they have the durability of actual people? That I'm confused on, but you know what? You keep doing you, show. Okay, so let's talk about Captain Kuro's plan here. Now keep in mind, in this version of events, Django is absent and Kaya is a shipwright business owner. Now Kuro is not looking to take Kaya's fortune, he's looking to steal her business. As Mary puts it in something of a throwaway line, Kuro wants the shipbuilding business transferred over to him when Kaya is of age and can legally transfer it over to him. And I guess from there, yeah, he could become a multi-millionaire by owning that business. But you wanna know what the bitch of it is? Kaya doesn't even want to run the business. She wants to be a doctor. So if Kuro had just stayed on being Klahabore and had just done his job as her butler dutifully, Kaya may have just willingly have given him the shipwright business. Butchie and Sham may have been pissy about it, but ultimately everybody wins. So I guess what I'm wondering here is, what the fuck is Atticus Finch over here thinking? Isn't this dude supposed to be like a master tactician? Yet here you are acting like a whole dumbass. For context and comparison, in the anime, Kaya doesn't have a shipwright business. In fact, we weren't even supposed to meet shipwrights until Water 7, which is still a far cry away from where we're at right now. But Kaya is filthy rich, and Kuro wants to steal her fortune and live in a life of luxury. In order to accomplish this, he wormed his way into the family and became the butler. From there, his plan was to hypnotize Kaya using Django in order to have her write her will that states that should anything happen happened to her, like say an untimely death, then her entire fortune would fall to Klahabore. He was also going to have his entire crew ransack the village and kill all the villagers. And then he was going to kill the entirety of his crew in order to keep the secret that Captain Kuro is still active, just that, a secret. Him being a pirate was something that he held pretty close to his chest, and he didn't want anybody to know about his pirate activities. So even when Kaya offered to give him her fortune if he just left and didn't kill anybody, Kuro would not accept this, as he is done being a pirate and wants to live his best life now as a rich man. Here in the live action, they could have either made it the way it was in the anime and have him along with his little sidekick Django plot to steal her fortune, or the dude could have just waited a little while longer and he most likely would have gotten the business. Like I said, she doesn't even want it. Kuro in the anime was a perfectionist. He didn't leave any stones left unturned, and they try to emulate this to a degree in the live action show, but ultimately ended up making him more cartoonishly evil. I wasn't able to take him too seriously. So I was really annoyed at Nami when it came to the third episode for a few reasons. One of them being that when they're eating at the dinner table, Kaya asks for something and Klahabore says that she can't have it. Instead, she's gonna have to eat her soup. Nami goes on to say that it's Kaya's birthday and she should have whatever she wants to have. And Klahabore clarifies that Kaya is under a strict diet due to her condition. And Nami kind of gets a little snappy with him here. And the reason that annoyed me was because, why, yes, we the audience understand that the butler is no good, especially those of us who actually have seen the One Piece anime. The characters in that world at that time do not understand shit between Kaya and Klahabore. So from the outside looking in, this could be seen as a butler looking out for the lady of the home. But Nami's over here giving him the business, and even towards the end of Nami and Kaya kind of bonding and becoming friends or whatever, she's talking to Kaya saying, hey, don't have Klahabore speak for you. You're a strong, independent woman. And I'm just like, where is that coming from? Last I checked, Klahabore wanted to kick you guys out twice, and both times relented to the wishes of Kaya, that being that you guys should stay. So it's not like Klahabore is controlling her, or at the very least not as much as what Nami is able to see. So Nami having these lines of dialogue for a complete and total stranger that she knows nothing about makes absolutely no fucking sense. And it's really rich coming from Nami, considering the fact that she was getting ready to rob Kaya not too long ago. And that's another thing that annoyed me about Nami in that episode, her being so conceited when it came to rich people. Like, she's going on about how rich people only care about themselves and there's tons of stuff that they won't miss and I can just steal whatever. Like, she sounds like a Gen Zer. And yes, Nami's thing is thievery, she does steal from people, but she wouldn't steal from a sickly girl who lost both of her parents even if she is rich. In fact, in the anime, Nami didn't even want to ask Kaya for a ship anymore after learning this information. Now, I get what the show was going for. They were going for that people aren't always as we perceive them to be. The problem is, in the anime, Nami has a person to teach her this lesson, and it's not Kaya, it's Monkey freaking D fucking Luffy. Remember, Nami's hatred comes towards pirates, not rich people. And while Nami's dislike towards pirates extends towards Luffy, she slowly starts to warm up to Luffy, seeing that he's not like all these other pirates. So I would have much rather have had a bonding moment between Nami and Luffy as opposed to Nami and Kaya. We don't even get a good bonding moment between Luffy and Usopp like we did in the anime, with them talking about Usopp, as Usopp would incessantly talk to Luffy about his son Usopp, who's around Luffy's age, back when Luffy was younger. No, instead, Luffy does not know that Usopp and Usopp are related until Usopp says so. And when Luffy tells Usopp that he does know Usopp, Usopp gets all emo over it. Like, you hung out with my dad? You guys actually talked? Yeah, he is genuinely sad that Luffy has spent more time with his dad than Usopp has himself. Whereas in the anime, Usopp is very excited to hear about his dad from Luffy because Usopp idolizes his dad and wishes to be just like him. But I guess that's just too much to ask from the show, so I'll just leave it at that. So the two big fights in episode 4 are the ones between Zoro, Sham, and Butchie, and Luffy and Kuro. And if there's an analogy that I can use to describe these two fights, I would say that the Luffy versus Kuro fight is what it feels like when you're playing video games with your girlfriend and are purposefully trying to lose in order to make your girl feel good because she honestly has no idea what she's doing. Whereas the Butchie and Sham v Zoro fight feels like you're playing video games with your girlfriend trying to make it look good, but ultimately deciding that you want to win. What I mean by that here is, yes, Sham and Butchie do put up a good fight. They're tag teaming Zoro like it's Mortal Kombat 1, but never do I feel like Zoro's life is in danger. Like, I don't feel like he's having any difficulty, nor should he have difficulty with these two characters. But the fight is dragging on just for the sake of giving us a fight. Like, at one point in time during the fight, Sham steals one of Zoro's swords, which is something that does happen in the anime. They steal not one but two of his swords. But in the anime, that really put him into a bind, with him trying to defeat both Butchie and Sham at the same time with just one sword. And when he got both of his swords back, he defeated them rather quickly. But here in the show, when Sham steals his one sword, that doesn't add or subtract from the fight in anyone's favor. Zoro's been fighting them with 2 swords this whole time, with again minimal difficulty. And then when he does get his third sword back, he still continues to use just 2 swords, and he defeats Butchie and Sham rather quickly. So it's a longer fight just for the sake of having a longer fight. The same can be said for the Kuro versus Luffy fight, but in this case, Kuro should have won because he has multiple opportunities to kill Luffy here and he doesn't capitalize on any of them. One time he could just straight up stab Luffy when he gets all up in his face, and instead of doing that, he just starts monologuing, or rather projecting about how it's so hard to be a pirate. Then he gets behind Luffy, again doesn't try to slice him, just vanishes and starts monologuing. One time he scratches Luffy, doesn't capitalize on that, just vanishes. And real quickly, how did he scratch Luffy like this? I mean, he has 2 scratches that are the opposite of each other. I mean, it makes sense when he actually stabs a dude, like he did with Mary. I'm just wondering how in the world did he get scratched in such a way? Did he get poked with the sword claws? But whatever, who cares? Turn your brain off, don't think about it. And then there's one point where Kuro gets directly behind Luffy, whispers in his ear, but doesn't stab him. And some people will say things like, oh, he was trying to terrify Luffy or some stupid shit like that. And you know what, dear viewer, I may have just granted you the boon. If only it wasn't for Usopp trying to take on Kuro earlier. We all saw Usopp try to take a shot at Kuro. It didn't work. Kuro disposed of Usopp, even though surprisingly he doesn't stab him either, and then makes his way straight back to Kaya the Killer. So no, Kuro was just being stupid. And then after Luffy gets a shot in on him, Kuro immediately just stops using his flash step and tries to take on Luffy with his normal speed. I mean, yes, Luffy listened in onto where Kuro was hiding at and was able to sock him from there, but Luffy didn't like counteract this dude's speed or anything, to the point where it became superfluous. Luffy simply got him once good, and then Kuro was like, well, can't use that anymore.
He really punched the arrogance out of me. I'm feeling mad humble right now. This crazy.
And because of that, Luffy wins. I mean, people talk smack about the anime all the time for the characters having too much plot armor, but this right here is plumb ridiculous. Garp, Kobe, and Helmeppo also eat up screen time again, and let me just tell you about these guys real quick. While yes, Helmeppo and Kobe do have a side story in the anime, you don't get to properly meet them again until a ways away from where we're at in the lore of One Piece. Same thing for Garp. Oh, but don't worry, all this screen time they're getting is gonna pay off in the end, right? I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. Spoiler alert, it won't. But that's another talk for another day. Arlong makes an early appearance in the show in comparison to his anime counterpart. And I think what they were trying to do here with that was try to set Arlong up to be more of a series antagonist as opposed to just an antagonist. Which I actually would not mind that change if they had better committed to that as opposed to having us dick around with the Marines and just having utter pointless scenes that don't matter. Speaking of the Marines though, the scene towards the end of episode 4 where Garp is staring at the Straw Hat ship and is like, alright, we got him now. How in the fuck does he know that that is their ship? I mean, he's looking at them through the telescope and you can barely see the boat. There's no way you can see the people on the boat. The boat does not have the Jolly Roger up on there yet. How do you know you have the correct ship? Like guys, this show is like a kid getting a 100 on his math test, but not showing any of his work. Like yes, you had the answers right, but I don't know how you got to any conclusions. So all in all, why these 2 episodes were better than the last episode, I can't even give you too much credit because, once again, they do not know what to properly adapt from the source material, what they can add in, and what they should take out. So I'm gonna give One Piece episodes 3 and 4 both a 2.5 out of 10. But let me know what you guys thought of these 2 episodes. We are halfway home, people. Can One Piece stick the landing? We'll see. We shall see. As always, support your emperor by leaving a like and clicking subscribe. Also, follow me on these social media platforms. You wouldn't want to commit treason now, would you?